Over the past 2 years, everything we knew about international trade has been almost completely dismantled. The United States, Europe, Canada, and Japan are no longer merely NATO allies or free trade partners. Now they are participants in a large-scale economic clash, where each is fighting for the survival of its own industries, its own jobs, and ultimately for control over the future. And here is the proof. Let's start with the symbol of American ambition, Tesla. In the year 2024, Elon Musk's company lost 14% of its market share in Norway, one of the world's most advanced countries in the field of electric vehicles. This is not just a number, it's a collapse. In a country where electric vehicles make up more than 80% of new sales, Tesla is no longer seen as a flagship. Why? Because Europe has begun speaking to America harshly, very harshly. When President Donald Trump lashed out at the European Union for supposedly unfair trade practices, it became the last straw. They don't allow our agricultural products, our cars. Yet we buy millions of BMWs, Mercedes, Volkswagens, Trump said during a meeting with the NATO Secretary General. But Europe was not only listening, it was preparing a response. And it was devastating. The European Union imposed strict retaliatory tariffs. France, Germany, and Italy stood as one. If America threatens our industries, whether it's cheese, cars, or wine, we will respond. And not with words, but with numbers and contracts. Tesla immediately came under fire. And not only because of economic measures, Denmark's pension fund sold all its Tesla shares, worth 400 million kroner. The reason? Rejection of union agreements, failed corporate policies, and Elon Musk's political statements. Strikes erupted in Sweden. Service centers, logistics hubs, and ports refused to work with Tesla. This was a signal not only to Musk's company, but to all American giants. Europe will not tolerate pressure and political interference. Elon Musk, who supports far-right politicians in Germany, the United Kingdom, and Italy, has turned Tesla into a toxic brand for European consumers. The result? In Norway, Tesla's market share dropped from 21.7% to 7.4% in 1 year. The brand's positive perception collapsed. In the United Kingdom, 59% of potential electric vehicle buyers stated that they would never purchase a Tesla due to the political stance of its owner. But let's now switch our focus to Canada. What is the quiet northern neighbor of the United States doing amid the unfolding trade chaos? It is turning away from Washington, straight into Europe's embrace. Canada is signing new military supply agreements with the European Union. The Saab Gripen from Sweden is replacing American fighter jets. The reason? A lack of trust in the stability of U.S. supplies and a new trade strategy. Since the implementation of the CETA agreement, trade between Canada and the European Union has grown by 60%. The Canadian government has openly declared its goal to reduce dependence on the United States. And it is already working. You think this is just economic redistribution? You're mistaken. This is a geopolitical shift. Japan, until recently the second largest holder of U.S. Treasury bonds, has begun offloading them en masse. In February of 2025 alone, $30 billion worth of U.S. Treasuries were sold. This is not just a gesture. This is a financial blow. Why did Japan take this step? Because the United States raised tariffs on Japanese cars to 25%. This destroys the competitiveness of Toyota, Honda, and Nissan in America. Sales fell by 7% in just the first quarter of 2025. And now, pay attention. Japan is relocating its factories from the United States to Mexico and Southeast Asia. This is a strategic restructuring of supply chains to bypass American tariffs and access the market through third countries. And it's working. But the most dangerous part is that Japan is ready to cut off exports of solid-state batteries. And those are the backbone of the electric vehicle revolution. If the United States continues its pressure, Japan could simply stop supplying the technologies without which EV production in America would grind to a halt. And in the same logic, the next round of conflict is already unfolding, this time in the energy sector. Canada is threatening to cut off oil and gas supplies to the United States. And by the way, 60% of American oil imports come specifically from Canada. Imagine what would happen if those flows stopped. Gasoline prices will skyrocket. Factories will shut down. Logistics will be paralyzed. But Canada is not just threatening. The province of Ontario has already increased the cost of electricity exports to the United States by 25%. Moreover, there are discussions about a complete termination of the contract with Elon Musk's project, Starlink, which provides internet to remote areas. This is a blow to millions of users on both sides of the border. Meanwhile, China is quietly stepping into the vacuum formed in the trade relations between the United States and Canada. Over the past year, oil exports from Canada to China have grown by 25%. Beijing is purchasing wheat, beef, lumber, everything that used to go to America. If the trend continues, within 5 years, China could become Canada's main trading partner, displacing the United States. And at that point, the trade map of North America will change forever. And now about wine. Yes, you heard correctly, this is a real wine war. The United States is threatening to impose a 200% tariff on wine and champagne from the European Union. This is a reaction to European tariffs of 50% on American whiskey. This is not just a symbolic retaliation, it is a blow to French exports worth billions of dollars. The European Union has already responded, "We will not give up our winemaking industry. We will defend it to the end." France, Italy, and Spain, the 3 largest exporters, have landed directly in the line of fire. And at the same time, the United States is preparing its own producers for an expansion into the European market. This is the so-called wine gambit. If the tariffs stay, American wine could push European wine out of EU countries. The advantage is in price. For the first time in history, American producers may gain mass access to a market long dominated by French, Italian, and Spanish brands. Now the question is this an economic war or a redistribution of global power? The United States stands in isolation. Canada and the European Union are forming new alliances. Japan is threatening a financial crisis. And China is quietly replacing the former hegemon on all fronts. Still think this is just ordinary trade friction? Think again. And while Washington debates the next round of tariffs in Toronto, Brussels, and Tokyo, the rules of a new economic era are being rewritten. Share your thoughts. Are we standing on the brink of a global transformation or already in the heart of it?